What's up, millennials? The deadline for the merger between TPGY and EVbox finally has been extended. Today we're going to take a look at some very important changes in the agreement between TPGY and EVbox, and I'm also going to show you my updated expected value for the TPGY stock. So let's do it! Before we're going to take a look at the changes of the agreement, which are very important by the way, we're first going to take a very quick look at the market cap, because there is still some confusion with regards to the market cap of TPGY and EVbox. Because there seems to be a little bit of confusion with some people. This is just going to be a reminder. Now keep in mind that according to Yahoo Finance, you're going to see that the market cap of TPGY is almost $600 million, but the reality is that if we are going to see a merger with EVbox, the pro forma market cap, or the market cap after the merger, is going to be way higher, or at least kind of higher compared to the market cap of just the SPAC, okay? So keep in mind that this is not the full market cap of EVbox if we are going to see a merger. Because, if we pull up the spreadsheet that I have been using in the previous videos, you can see that they are going to have about 140 million shares outstanding after the merger. And if you then take into account that the price right now is about $13.33, then the pro forma market cap, so the market cap after the merger is going to be completed, hopefully, of course, is going to be about $1.8, $1.9 billion, all right? And also keep in mind that they are going to have about $420 million in net cash on their balance sheet after the merger, if the merger is going to go through, according to the updated presentation, investor presentation of, I believe, March of this year of 2021. So if you want a little bit more information about how all of that works, how the market cap is calculated exactly after the merger, please check out my video that I released all the way back in December 2020, when I was talking about my stock price prediction for TPGY, for EVbox, if, again, we are going to see that merger. So definitely check out that video if you're still a little bit confused. Right after, we're going to talk about these changes in the agreement, which are quite significant and especially very important. We are going to take a look at the updated expected value for the TPGY stock, but first, the changes in this agreement. And just a little, important information before we talk about this, because whenever you see the word seller, so just the word seller, it is actually the French company Engie. Engie is the French company, like the mother company, if you will, that is selling EVbox, which right now is a portion of that company, of Engie. But to make it easy, I'm probably going to say EVbox instead of Engie whenever we see the word seller, all right? So keep that in mind. So the first thing that has changed is that we now have a different deadline, and in this case, what they call the deadline is the outside date. So whenever you see the word outside date, think of the word deadline. Right now, the deadline has been pushed back to August 6th. So whenever we see, this deadline, this outside date, we know that before August 6th, the agreement has to be completed, the merger has to be completed, and else we might see something else going on. We might see, we're going to take a look at that later on, but we might see the fact that EVbox might have to pay a little bit of money, or quite a bit of money, if you will. Before that date, everything has to be completed, and else the agreement can be terminated. Now, the SPAC in this case, so TPGY again, can theoretically extend this outside date again, so they can extend the deadline again, but they can only do that. The company, EVbox, or Engie, if you will, the seller, they are not able to do that. So only the TPGY SPAC can extend the date again, okay? So the next section we're going to talk about is this entire section over here, which is basically section 9.01. And this has all to do with the 2020 audit, basically the financial results of EVbox of 2020, because those are not finished just yet. And that seems to be the major problem for this entire holdup for now. So there are a few things, because the entire agreement, the entire SPAC merger could be terminated by the SPAC, so TPGY, during 15 business days, again, keep that in mind, business days, after these audits, these 2020 results have been delivered from EVbox to TPGY. Now, if you take into account a calendar, let's actually pull it up, you take into account that the extended date right now is August 6th, okay? And the company, or TPGY actually, has 15 business days to look at those financial results of EVbox to say whether they like it or not, whether they want to change something or not. So basically, I believe that that could mean that instead of August 6th, the most important date for EVbox to deliver their financial results to TPGY, the SPAC, is actually 3 weeks before, because that is 15 business days before. So that is, instead of August 6th, we see July 30th, that would be 5 business days, this would be 10 business days, and then July 16th would be 15 business days before August 6th. So I believe that on July 16th, EVbox will need to post, or will need to send, their 2020 results to the SPAC TPGY. But keep in mind again that TPGY, the SPAC, can also extend again that deadline from August 6th to a later date if they need more time to look at those financial results. So yeah, it can still be the case that EVbox sends the results on August 6th, for example, or a little bit earlier. And then TPGY could say, okay, we now need like 3 weeks to look at these numbers and to see whether we still want to go on with the deal or not. Okay, so that is very important to keep that in mind. Okay, so now something else that I want to talk about a little bit more is that a lot of people are saying that this delay could be a problem. Well, the problem for this delay could actually be because of the SEC with the whole SPAC warrant issue, because SPAC warrants right now need to be filled in, need to be accounted for as liabilities instead of equities. Now, I think that is a part of the problem, but I don't think this is the largest issue for this merger between TPGY and EVbox. I do think it is a potential issue. It is a small issue, but I think that many SPACs have already changed this problem from SPAC warrants, turning these from liabilities into, from equities into liabilities, of course. Now, I do think that is a small issue, but I think there are more problems at play here. I think that keep in mind that EVbox is a part of a larger company because, Engie is the mother company of EVbox, and it might be very difficult to extract all the financial results from a company within a company, if you will, from EVbox within Engie, okay? Also keep in mind that EVbox is a European company, TPGY is an American company. So between Europe and the United States, there are different accounting standards. So that is also likely one part of the delay for this entire whole 2020 audit, if you will, for these 2020 financial results. Then another very important change is the expenses that EVbox might have to pay to TPGY in case that the merger is not going to be completed. Now, there are multiple potential payments that EVbox needs to make. First of all, let's talk about the cash payment number 1, if you will, which is a payment of 4.5 million euros if the agreement is terminated for basically whatever reason. Then EVbox needs to pay 4.5 million euros within 12 business days after the termination of the agreement. So if there is no deal, then EVbox will need to pay 4.5 million anyways, and this is definitely an incentive for EVbox to complete the deal. Then there's also a second potential cash payment, which I'm just going to call cash payment number 2. And this is a payment of 6 million euros for EVbox again, if EVbox is not able to deliver their financial results for 2021 before August 6th, which is again the new deadline, of course. Or they also need to pay 6 million euros if TPGY, so the SPAC in this case, sends a revised proposal for the merger to EVbox before August 6th, the deadline, and EVbox does not accept this revised proposal. And again, this revised proposal is based on the revisions to the EVbox's financial statements, their outlook, and their liabilities. And then we have the third potential cash payment, which I'm just going to call cash payment number 3. And this is a payment, instead of $6 million, it would be $7.5 million, or actually euros. I might have said dollars in the beginning, but it's all in euros. If the outside date, so the deadline, is extended from August 6th to August 31, or later actually, and EVbox is still not able to deliver their financial statements before that new deadline, or TPGY is going to send a revised proposal before this new date, and EVbox is not going to accept it. So in conclusion, if we don't see a deal, then EVbox is going to have to pay 4.5 million euros for sure. Maybe they're also going to have to pay 6 million euros, and maybe that's even going to be 7.5 million instead of 6 million euros. Now, these are all, again, keep in mind, incentives for EVbox, or actually Engie, which is the seller of EVbox, of course, to complete the financial statements for 2020 as soon as possible, at least before August 6th, and potentially before this new deadline if TPGY, the SPAC, is going to extend the deadline again. Now, the question remains, are there any incentives for TPGY to complete this merger? Because I do think there are a lot of financial incentives for EVbox to complete the deal. because else they might have to pay $4.5 million or $10 million or like $12 million. So yeah, are there incentives for TPGY, the SPAC as well? Well, I think they are not in this agreement. They are not on like black and white on paper, but I do think there are certain incentives, because if we don't see a deal, TPGY is going to have to search for a new company, and that is going to take a lot of time, a lot of money. So they probably don't want to do that. If we don't see a deal, it's probably going to lead to a bad reputation for TPGY too. And again, if we don't see a deal, then or TPGY is going to lose out on this deal, which in my opinion, and in the opinion of many other people, and probably in your opinion too, it was already a very good one. So it's going to be very, very difficult, in my opinion, to get a deal that is as good as the deal they have on the table right now. So yes, I do think that not only EVbox has incentives to complete the merger, but also TPGY has incentives too. So as we can read in this document, TPGY says they are going to continue to discuss with Engie, again the mother company of EVbox, to discuss the various alternatives with regards to the business combination. They are not sure if they are going to receive the 2020 results or when they are going to receive these results, and they say that there is still significant uncertainty with regards to whether the business combination is going to be completed or not. Let's now take a look at the expected value, the updated expected value, and after this I'm going to take a look at the chart and give you my opinion on what can happen in the next few months. Well, first of all, let's go back to the updated expected value. I talked about this in my previous video where I shared my model, if you will, for the expected value for the TPGY stock. Right now, of course, all of these options of no extension, they are basically gone because, yeah, we do have an extension. So all of these chances are just going to go to zero. So let's complete that. So that means that we now need to redistribute the chances for these other options right now. Well, I think that, yeah, if we do, or if we are going to see an EVbox merger, I think that the likelihood is definitely increased right now. I think that there are enough incentives for both parties involved to complete the merger. So I kind of think that in about 70% of the cases, we are going to see this merger because of all these incentives at play. And I do think if you take into account that 70% is the likelihood of a deal, that 30% is the likelihood of no deal. And I think, well, of course, this is not 100% guaranteed to have a deal, but I think that like a likelihood of 30% is still a kind of like a significant uncertainty whether the business combination is going to succeed or not. So I think that 70% is kind of likely, and I think it's pretty doable. And I think that if we do see a deal, the price is probably going to go back to about like $25 per share, especially if you take into account the technical analysis, if you take into account the sentiment, for example. So I definitely think that could be a solid target if we see a deal happening later this year. So if we are not going to see a merger, I think that it is more or less 50-50 if we are going to see a good new target or not. Because keep in mind that if we don't see a deal with EVbox, then TPGY is going to have to search for a new target. And yeah, I do think if we see a new target, it's basically 50-50 if that's going to be a solid company or not, because right now it is more and more difficult to find good companies in the markets to acquire. So I think we can mainly, make this more or less like 13% for this one too. I think that if we do see a good target, the price could go to like $15 per share. If we don't see a good target, the price is likely to go into just stay flat at like $10 per share. And then the last option is that we are not going to see a deal with EVbox. We're not going to see a deal with any company at all. I think that likelihood is pretty low. It's probably about like 4% or so. And in that case, we are just going to get our money back, which might not be entirely $10 per share, which usually is the floor, but it might be a little bit lower because of like transaction expenses and all that kind of stuff. So in the very, very worst case, I think we would get $9 per share back for our money. So then if you take into account all of these percentages and all of these prices for these percentages, then the expected value is going to be around $21.11 per share. I think that's a pretty solid target in my opinion. It's already way higher than the previous expected value of my previous video, where I said that the expected value was around $17.22. And again, keep in mind that this is not 100% guaranteed because, yeah, in about like 1/3 of the cases, I do think that we might not see a deal with EVbox and we might need to wait quite a long time before we get any new target. Then with regards to the chart of the TPGY stock, so far the investors have been relatively positive about this change, about the changes in the agreement that have been made so far. We had a pretty solid day yesterday of more than 8% up. And yeah, I do think that until the next date, the August 6th day, the deadline, we could see low price action, because I kind of think that everyone is just waiting for confirmation before they're either going to sell their shares or buy new shares. I do think, however, that there are some short-term people like swing traders, day traders, etc. that might sell their shares right now, because it is very possible that the TPGY stock is not going to go up in the next 2 months or so. And yeah, it could be that there are more opportunities in the market right now and they want to take their money out of TPGY and put it into some other stock for the next couple of months. So with regards to the technical analysis, can't really say anything about that. It actually looks pretty good, but I don't really think we can do any technical analysis right now because the fundamentals are taking over and there is just too much uncertainty in the market with regards to the merger between TPGY and EVbox right now. So in conclusion, I think that EVbox, or actually Engie, which is the seller of an EVbox, of course, they are at fault right here. They should have delivered the 2020 results way earlier than they have right now. And I think that right now the ball is in their court. Now, I do think there are enough incentives for both the SPAC, TPGY, and EVbox, or actually Engie, to complete this merger. So personally, in my opinion, I do think we're going to see a deal somewhere in August or potentially even in July. Now, I'm also very much looking forward to hearing from you as well. Do you believe that Engie is going to be able to deliver the 2020 results for EVbox in time or not? Let me know in the comments. And with that being said, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye!